Walk into a Honda dealership in 2025 and something feels off. Whole sections are emptier, mid-range models are missing, and nobody's talking about why. This isn't random, it's coordinated. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what they don't want you to see. The floor plan time bomb. At first glance, a dealership showroom feels like a promise. Bright lights, polished chrome, and brand new motorcycles lined up like trophies. To the casual customer, it all looks like success in motion. But beneath that gleam lies a slow-burning financial fuse. Each of those machines represents not just potential profit, but accumulating interest. What looks like inventory is often liability in disguise, and in 2025, that quiet debt has become the silent killer of motorcycle dealers nationwide. Here's how it works. Manufacturers like Honda ship bikes to dealerships, and instead of making the dealer pay up front, they set them up with financing from third-party lenders. It sounds like a win-win. The dealer gets product on the floor and the manufacturer gets sales flowing without delay. But that free inventory isn't really free. Every month that bike sits unsold, interest accumulates. After 60 or 90 days, that interest starts compounding. After 6 months, the dealership is bleeding money. After a year, they're in trouble, and it's the bikes that don't move that do the most damage. In 2025, Honda dealerships across the United States started quietly ringing the alarm. Models that once sold in 4 to 6 weeks were now aging out, marked down, collecting dust, and dragging debt like a broken muffler. Some dealers tried everything to offload them: markdowns, bundle deals, incentives. Others just let the losses ride, hoping for a seasonal shift that never came. And yet, few would talk openly. Admitting a floor plan crisis is like admitting defeat. It signals poor planning, weak turnover, and declining demand. So they stayed quiet, but the numbers did not. But mounting debt wasn't the only threat. Even the bikes that did sell started creating a new kind of damage, one that came from inside Honda's own house. If you've made it this far, you're already seeing the cracks most riders never notice. Tap that like button if you appreciate the behind-the-scenes truth, and drop a comment with your experience at a Honda dealership this year. Cannibalized from within. Every brand has competition. What makes Honda's case different in 2025 is that some of their biggest competitors wore the same logo. It wasn't Yamaha or Suzuki stealing sales, it was Honda's own new models sinking the old ones. Take the Transalp 750. It's one of the best releases Honda has had in years. Modern, capable, and just premium enough to feel special. But its launch accidentally gutted the CB500X. Why settle for a less powerful, less capable bike when a better one now exists for a little more money? The same pattern emerged with the Rebel 1100, which made the 500 feel like an awkward placeholder. And with the new CB1000 Hornet SP stepping in, the 650R looked dated and overpriced almost overnight. Honda created a lineup that competed with itself, and in doing so undermined the very mid-range segment they'd once dominated. It was never clear who each bike was really for, and if customers were confused, dealerships were even more so. You couldn't talk up the value of a CB500F in one sentence and then pitch the CB750 Hornet for just a couple $1,000s more in the next. Buyers noticed. They backed away. It's one thing to lose market share to another brand. That can be rationalized. But when your own products begin to cancel each other out, the issue runs deeper. Internal logic fails. Brand loyalty erodes, and dealers begin to question every piece of inventory they're asked to carry. And when even your best offerings start sabotaging each other, the bloodletting begins. If you're still riding through the shift, make sure your gear keeps up. Our must-haves are linked in the description. Tools, jackets, gloves, all tested. The great silent pullback. What came next wasn't loud. It didn't come with headlines or Instagram posts or bold dealer memos. It came quietly, like a showroom ghosting its own lineup. Walk into a Honda dealership in mid-2020, give, and something feels off. You see fewer mid-tier bikes. You notice empty spaces. Ask a salesperson about a CB500F and they hesitate. Ask about the CB650R and they deflect. The pullback was already in motion. Not because Honda made an official announcement, but because dealerships did. They stopped ordering certain models altogether. They reordered Groms, CRFs, and Africa Twins, but not the Rebels, not the CBS. Some units still sat, but they weren't being restocked. They weren't being promoted. They weren't even being cleaned. More revealing than inventory numbers was floor space reallocation. Mid-tier bikes got shuffled to corners. Prime spots went to scooters, small displacement bikes, and flagship tourers. New buyers never saw the forgotten models, and old buyers didn't ask. And that's the scariest part for any brand. Not when customers complain, but when they stop noticing altogether. This wasn't about showroom design. It wasn't even about cutting losses. It was about survival. Because in a business where every square foot must justify itself, a bike that doesn't sell fast enough is not just dead weight, it's a threat to the whole operation. But this wasn't about showroom design, it was about survival. No one wants the middle anymore. There was a time when the middleweight segment ruled motorcycle showrooms. Not too intimidating for beginners, not too underpowered for returning riders. Bikes like the CB 500F and Rebel 500 filled that sweet spot. Affordable, approachable, and simple to live with. But by 2025, that middle had become a no man's land. Budget-conscious riders were no longer settling for middleweight Hondas. They were heading straight to Chinese manufacturers like CFMoto, Benelli, and even QJ Motor, where they found digital dashboards, ride modes, and aggressive styling, often for thousands of dollars less. On the other end of the spectrum, enthusiasts were skipping right over the middle entirely. Instead of slowly moving up from a 500 class bike, they were jumping straight into the deep end with machines like the Yamaha MT-10, Kawasaki Z900, or even high-spec Triumphs. These riders weren't interested in easing in. They wanted power, features, and edge, even if it meant spending $13,000 or more. In that bifurcated market, Honda's middle-tier bikes were stranded. Not cheap enough to lure beginners, not exciting enough to lure veterans. They weren't competing, they were forgotten. And so the floor space that once belonged to them became dead weight. These bikes no longer represented a stepping stone. They represented hesitation. And in a motorcycle market moving at full throttle, hesitation gets left behind. The result was simple. No tribe, no movement, no sales. And motorcycles with no tribe? They don't sell, they rot. Death by spec sheet. Price used to be a Honda advantage. You paid a little more than the budget bikes and got legendary reliability, clean build quality, and solid resale value. But in 2025, the spec sheet started telling a different story. Take the Honda CB 650R, a bike with silky inline-4 performance and minimalistic design. Great on paper, but it sits at nearly $10,000 before dealer fees and taxes. Now compare that to a Yamaha MT-07, which offers torque-rich performance, a more modern feel, and a lower price tag, often by $2,000 or more. And it gets worse. Enter the CFMoto 800NK. Liquid-cooled parallel twin, ride modes, a 5-inch TFT screen, and Brembo brakes. All of it wrapped in aggressive Street Fighter styling. And the price? Under $9,000. Buyers walk into showrooms with their phones out, punch in a few comparisons, and suddenly that sleek Honda starts to look like a bad deal. The problem wasn't just that rivals were cheaper, they were offering more for less. And once the spec sheet math kicked in, emotion couldn't save the sale. And dealers found themselves stuck in the middle of an impossible conversation. They had to justify why a Honda cost more but offered fewer standout features. They had to sell tradition in a market driven by innovation. The CB 500X, once a beloved light adventure commuter, got overshadowed by its bigger sibling, the Transalp 750, which offered better suspension, more tech, and real off-road chops for only a little more money. The logic of the lineup collapsed. It wasn't just a price issue, it was perception. The spec sheet may be just one part of a bike story, but in 2025, it became the table of contents. And too often, Honda's numbers made readers close the book. But the problem wasn't just the numbers, it was the vibe. The emotionless era. Some brands inspire obsession. Ducati has the passion, KTM has the chaos, Yamaha has the edge, but Honda has the silence. Not because their bikes are bad, they're not. Most Honda motorcycles are still beautifully made, mechanically reliable, and effortlessly practical. The problem is that in 2025, practicality is invisible. It doesn't get clicks. It doesn't fuel Instagram reels or TikTok edits. It doesn't make your buddy lean over and say, "Man, what is that?" Honda's design language has been clean, neutral, and safe. Their marketing in North America? Practically non-existent. There are no bold ad campaigns, no rider-first storytelling, no design that dares to stand out. The CB 650R, a bike that should scream Street Fighter energy, instead whispers commuter class. The Rebel 500, once a fresh alternative to Harley's aging cruisers, now feels stuck between generations with no clear identity. Meanwhile, younger riders are choosing motorcycles that reflect their personality. They don't want a blank slate, they want something that says something about them. And Honda, for all its competence, says very little. Dealers have felt it too. These bikes don't generate buzz on the floor, they don't spark excitement during test rides, they sit still, physically and emotionally. It's not that Honda failed, it's that they faded. And in a marketplace where emotion sells, fading is fatal. And for a brand built on legacy, that silence was thunderous. When dealers stopped believing. For decades, Honda dealerships carried the banner of consistency. They didn't need to believe in hype because they believed in product. Honda sold because it worked. But by 2025, that faith began to fracture. Not because dealers stopped liking the bikes, but because they couldn't afford to love them anymore. Salespeople quietly stopped pitching the mid-range lineup. Walk-ins asking about a Rebel 500 were politely nudged toward the 1100 instead. Mid-tier CBS were treated like optional side quests in the sales flow. And eventually, internal culture started shifting. Sales leads stopped listing those bikes first. Finance managers began tilting payment plans to favor newer models. Even service teams started preparing for less demand on older stock. Fewer parts, fewer training hours, fewer updates. No one made a big announcement. There were no internal memos titled, "Give up on the CBS." But the shift was everywhere and it was clear. When dealerships lose confidence, they don't need to shout it. They just reallocate their energy. The CB 500F that once got the spotlight on the showroom floor was now in the shadows, pushed to the back row or skipped entirely during customer walkthroughs. It's not sabotage, it's triage. Dealers only have so much bandwidth, so much time, so much space. And in 2025, that time and space is going to models with movement, not models with memories. And when the people closest to your bikes stop caring, customers follow. The death of the showroom walk-in. There is less small talk, fewer wide-eyed first-timers, and almost no one wandering around with open curiosity in the dealerships these days. That is because the era of the showroom walk-in is all but over. In 2025, buyers do their homework online, watch video reviews, compare prices, and check forums. By the time they set foot in a dealership, they are not browsing. They are hunting, and often not for a Honda. This change in consumer behavior has upended the sales process. The bikes that dominate YouTube thumbnails, Reddit threads, and influencer reviews are the ones buyers ask about. For Honda, that list has grown dangerously short. The Africa Twin makes the cut. So does the Grom. But the middle-tier machines, the CBs, the Rebels, the forgotten street standards, barely register anymore. Buyers are algorithmically guided to trendier brands and more exciting models long before a salesperson can even shake their hand. Dealers have had to adjust. They are building digital funnels, hosting demo ride weekends, and trying to create experiences that online research cannot replicate. But there is a hard limit to how much marketing can compensate for apathy. If a bike is not being talked about online, it is already halfway out of the buyer's mind. And while buyers scroll past the CBs online, the physical floor space tells another story, because someone else is moving in. The rise of the niche kings. Walk into a multi-brand dealership today and look around. You might be surprised by who is winning the floor space battle. The Rebel 500 once sat front and center, flanked by the CB series and maybe a scooter or two. Today, that prime real estate often belongs to brands like Royal Enfield, Yamaha, and even Suzuki. These are not flukes. They are strategic reconfigurations based on one simple question: what actually moves? Dealers are not in the nostalgia business. They are in the velocity business. And if Royal Enfield's Scrambler lineup gets more eyeballs than a Honda naked bike, then that is what gets the spotlight. Yamaha's MT series has become the new gold standard for mid-tier excitement, and Enfield's affordable, charming retro machines are bringing in first-time buyers who want style without the intimidation. Honda, meanwhile, is caught in a brand identity crisis. Their bikes are solid, but no longer exciting. No buzz, no tribal loyalty. This shift in showroom dynamics is not about legacy. It is about attention economics. When a customer walks into a dealership and heads straight for the XSR 700, it is not because they have something against Honda. It is because Honda has faded into the background noise. Even Suzuki, long considered a quiet survivor, has leveraged competitive pricing and model refreshes to claw back relevance in places Honda once dominated. But behind the showroom displays and shifting inventory lies something more elusive, a dealership culture that has quietly changed its tone. The Whisper Network. There is no memo from corporate, no bold announcement from Honda leadership. But spend an hour behind the counter at a Honda dealership and you will hear it. Whispers. Strategically vague conversations. Sales reps redirecting interest, not because they were told to, but because they have learned where the dead ends are. Ask about a CB 650R in 2025, and a seasoned rep might nod politely, then immediately suggest a Yamaha. Mention the Rebel 500, and they will gently guide you toward the Rebel 1100. More bike, better chance at a sale, and less floor plan regret. These are not overt rejections. They are soft redirections, quiet tactics, spoken with a practiced smile. Managers are in on it too. Some dealerships are offering subtle bonuses for moving leftover inventory, gift cards, small commissions, anything to move dead stock. Others are reassigning showroom positions based on sales velocity, not manufacturer preference. The result? Honda's forgotten models get pushed further back if they are even on the floor at all. Finance teams are tweaking payment structures to make higher-performing models look more attractive. Service departments quietly prepare for reduced support on bikes that are unlikely to return in future model years. It is a system-wide behavioral shift, not from the top down, but from the ground up. And that is what makes it so powerful. Because this change is not about marketing, it is about momentum. And Honda's old lineup no longer has it. Trimming the tree. The public didn't see it as clearly, but internally this was not panic. It was precision. While other brands might announce full-line overhauls or shut down model families in dramatic press events, Honda worked differently. Quiet, surgical, and deliberate. They weren't slashing products out of desperation. They were curating. The goal wasn't to shrink the brand, it was to strengthen it. And for Honda, that meant treating the showroom like a garden. Unproductive models were pruned not because they were failures, but because they no longer fit the environment. Dealers noticed it first, of course. The lineup started tightening. Fewer CBs, fewer duplicates, fewer trim variations that only confused buyers. There was a clear sense that Honda had run the numbers and decided less is more. Models that used to fill the gray space between entry-level and premium were slowly pulled back. Not abandoned with flair, but quietly phased out. In their place, models built with purpose and platforms built for the future. This reset was also about infrastructure. Honda began shifting serious attention toward modular design, electric adaptability, and global manufacturing alignment. That meant fewer region-specific bikes and more versatile base platforms capable of becoming multiple variants depending on market needs. It also meant investing less in outdated formats and more in electrification, even if those models weren't on showroom floors just yet. Dealers welcomed this clarity. They no longer had to guess which CB variant might sell. They no longer had to stock every trim level hoping someone would care. Instead, they were working with a focused, intentional catalog, and that felt more sustainable. Yet even in this strategy, there was loss. Every model cut from the tree had once meant something to someone. A first ride, a last bike, a bridge between who they were and who they became as a rider. For every branch Honda trimmed, there was a rider left behind. As the showroom tightened, the brand itself reshaped, and what emerged next revealed exactly how Honda planned to dominate the future. The new twin pillars. It sounds strange until you look at the data. The extremes were thriving. On one end of the spectrum were small bikes, the Groms, Monkeys, Navi scooters, CRF 300s. Inexpensive, fuel-efficient, endlessly customizable, and beloved by city riders and new motorcyclists alike. On the other end, big bikes with big purpose. The Africa Twin, the NT 1100, the upgraded Gold Wings. These were machines built for serious riders who knew exactly what they wanted and were willing to spend to get it. This new hourglass strategy, as some in the industry have started calling it, represents a fundamental shift in how Honda sees its customer base. The middle class of motorcycles, the generalist bikes like the CB 500 series, the Rebel 500, the CB 650R, had become commercially and culturally ambiguous. So instead of stretching to hold that space, Honda collapsed it entirely. They doubled down on what worked. Urban mobility, especially in tight global markets, is now built around low-cost, high-efficiency small bikes. These aren't just starter bikes anymore. They're the daily machines for tens of millions of riders. With fuel prices rising and urban congestion worsening, models like the Grom are as much economic tools as they are toys. Meanwhile, adventure bikes have become aspirational symbols. The Africa Twin isn't just a motorcycle, it's a statement. And with the rise of long-distance touring content online, more riders want to live that story. So Honda gave them the machines to do it with better tech, comfort, and capability than ever before. That left everything in between floating in uncertainty. If you were looking for a generic mid-size naked bike with no clear story or advantage, Honda wasn't going to build it for you anymore. Instead, the lineup polarized. Low and lean, big and bold. Everything else, quietly disappearing. In that split, the brand found its new identity, not just as a manufacturer of motorcycles, but as a manufacturer of purpose. And that split created a ripple effect far beyond the showroom floor. Ghosts of the mid-range. For years, bikes like the CB 500F or the CB 650R were invisible workhorses. Reliable, predictable, safe. But now, as their production quietly fades, riders are beginning to realize what they lost. Not just the models themselves, but an era. An era where you could walk into a dealership and find a bike that fit like a glove, not because it dazzled, but because it didn't ask for anything more than your time. In 2025, those bikes are finding new life on the used market. The very models that sat untouched in dealerships are now being hunted down by riders who regret not grabbing one sooner. Because with every passing month, it becomes clearer. These mid-range bikes are not being replaced. Not directly, not equivalently. The CB 650R, with its inline-4 smoothness, now feels like the end of something analog. The Rebel 500, quirky as it was, now stands as a rare bridge between modern aesthetics and classic cruiser ergonomics. Prices are reflecting that. Low-mileage units are quietly climbing in value. Riders are realizing that this might be their last chance to own one before they become collectors' curiosities. And what was once a showroom burden is now, strangely, an online bidding war. This nostalgia isn't just about features, it's about emotion. About the feeling of a Honda that didn't try to impress, only to endure. As the lineup leans futuristic, some riders are already looking back, mourning what they didn't know they had. We spent weeks gathering internal reports, interviewing dealers, and connecting showroom-level whispers that no one else is talking about. If that kind of research matters to you, hit subscribe so you never miss the truth behind the headlines. This is what they're not telling you. And just like that, the bikes that couldn't sell became legends in the rearview mirror. The quiet revolution. If there's one thing Honda has never done, it's panic. The 2020 retreat from certain models wasn't a brand in crisis. It was a brand recalibrating. Behind the scenes, Honda was investing in exactly what comes next. Leaner catalogs, smarter platforms, and electrification. We are already seeing the early signs. Bikes like the Transalp 750 aren't just great machines, they are modular ones. Built to be tweaked for different markets, emission standards, and riding styles. They share chassis DNA with other bikes, allowing manufacturing to scale more efficiently. And under the radar, Honda is preparing for its entry into the electric bike market, not with splashy prototypes, but with strategic global models. The company has committed to releasing multiple electric motorcycles by the end of the decade, and when they arrive, they will likely be modular, scalable, and supported by global supply chains. That's the heart of this revolution. Not louder branding, but smarter execution. Trim the fat. Focus the lineup. Build what sells and build it smarter than anyone else. That's why the disappearance of old models from showrooms isn't a defeat. It's the calm before reinvention. Honda's playing a long game, and while others chase quick hits and viral moments, Honda is quietly building the future. A future where fewer bikes do more, where platforms are global, where dealers stock less and sell more, where riders feel the strategy even if they never read the press release. So no, this isn't a retreat. It's the moment before the next acceleration. If this opened your eyes to what's really happening behind those dealership doors, like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed for more content like this. And if you want a story that's even more shocking, watch our deep dive on what they found in Evel Knievel's garage after his death shocked the world.